During this video, I will talk a bit about special effects in animation, such as fire, explosions, droppings, and these kind of animations. These that seems quite unpredictable. We briefly talked about it when we talked about straight ahead and pose to pose principle of animation. Back then we said that these type of animations, such as fire, smoke, explosions, etc., they weren't predictable, so we usually make them straight ahead. So we draw one drawing and then the other and then the other, because if we draw two, it's kind of difficult to predict what is in the middle. In fact, what we have to think about when we do this kind of animations, it's all about physics. Okay, we really need to feel the flow between one drawing and the other. And the difficulty here usually is to identify that flow. So I just have here one small example. I have here a flame of a candle that is animating, as you can see. This is just a candle that is inside a room without any wind. What we see here is a flame that is flatter on the base and is the top of the flame that is like tapping some place, random place, let's say. Another thing that I'm doing here is just making some stretching and squashing to the flame. So you can see here that the flame here is at this point, and at another moment the flame is here. Okay, so you can see the difference. So the flame is changing high from this point to this point. Okay, so this candle gently goes from one side to another. As I said, there's no wind here, it's just burning. Okay, the animation, the movements are quite subtle. But what we can see here is, if instead of a light I have a line, I will draw some lines from this point to the top of the flame. See what is happening? This is the turbulence that we feel, like going to one side to the other, okay? And this is just repeating one time after another. So if you want to animate something that is burning there, like without an end, without being blown, you can first trace a line and then the flame around it. Maybe it would be easier, okay? If we add some wind here in the scenario, well, it depends on the intensity of the wind, of course, but if there's a bit more wind coming, the flame will be bigger because of the extra oxygen that comes in. And also the shape of the candle will change. If you add extra things to burn, then you can look for images of big fire, and then you can look at those flames and try to use that as a reference, and then you can bring all the changes of shape to get into that shape. And I will just make a brief example so you can start from a small flame to a big one. But before that, let's think about a kind of wind that comes here and it will blow up our candle and will extinguish. Considering the wind coming to this side, so someone is going to blow this candle. I have now my guidelines. My candle that was like this, I will blow it and then it will come to this point until it vanishes. So the wind blows from the left and I start bringing my flame to the right, and the differences that we created before of squash and stretch, they will try to continue to happen. However, due to the wind, that will not happen in a straightforward way. And what we'll see is that the flame it will get longer, okay? It will be longer until it vanishes. So it will actually expand in volume a bit, as you can see here. Okay, here the flame is bigger than here, and we are going to stretch it. So this is my bigger stretch, and here is my last stretch, and from here I will just make it disappear it vanishes very quickly. But what about when we want to make this fire, this flame to get bigger and to have like a big fire? And the way that you bring a small flame to a big flame, it also follows some logic related to physics, of course. And an easy way to do that is start simple. So let's start simple. I will start with something like this, and the tendency of this flame is to go upper, and I will stretch it as it comes up. And I will do it even more, and as I start to bring it up, notice that I'm creating here these two parts of the flame, and what will happen is like it's going to separate. Okay, then we can make this flatter, and this continues to go up, and I will create now again something like this, and something like this. Okay, so this is the simpler representation of fire that you can make, and it's a good help to make this because it's based on this that we know that how the fire will grow, okay, and how it will expand. So if instead of this single flame we have like two parts of the flame, we can also make it with the same principle. So we have something like starts like this, and then what we will do, it's basically the same thing. We will start to make like this, and then it's like something like this. And if you start something at one point like this one here, we can just start to make it bigger. And we start to change the shape of our fire. As this part separates from our fire, we will bring this flatter again, okay? Because when that part separates, it's like the oxygen that is there to help our flame to burn makes like a little bubble there. And then we can continue to play with that. And these flames goes, and if you want to start another to this part. Okay. So now let's make a more complex example, because what will happen is we can create also some holes, and you will see that as we see these flames here, it will also happen that at some given moments, what will happen is like we will see some holes in our flames, okay? And these holes are important then to separate the fire, okay? So let's make one example of that. This is my first flame, and this is my second flame. So observe here what is happening. It will change shape and size. We will continue to think about that line that we talked before. We will have something like this, and then the following we have something like this, and then we can, because this is igniting, and we can just make something like, okay, and now I will make my fire across this. And the more pieces that we create around, so these pieces that we are like doing like this and then this, and I need to say two things related to this. So the more details that we give to the fire, the larger the effect will be, okay? And another thing is that these parts that are going to separate from our fire, if I draw it like this, as I did with the previous example, it will seem like it's just burning there more peacefully, okay, more quietly. But the shape of these elements are important, because if instead of this shape we give it these circles like this, and the is like explosion. So yeah, it gives a more powerful energy here of the fire. So if I make this kind of shape, it will change significantly. So as I see here, I change my shape to this part, and I'm starting to give this shape in my fire to create this explosion effect. So the next one, I will now bring it to this side. So I'm swinging the direction of the fire while I keep it growing, changing shape to this side, and again I'm giving all these details. And in the next one, I will create the fire will start to be even bigger and wider, and as it becomes wider, I will start to creating some holes. So I needed to change the position of them, so I activate this option that is to edit multiple frames, and then we can just move it around all together. Click there again to take it out, and there we go. Okay, so we see it growing, and once again call your attention for these holes here. And what we can create now is inside each one of these flames another color. You can add here now another color here inside. Okay, not making another color, but anyway, kind of work as the flame itself. Okay, so it's here something like this, and then here in this part here we see that there's more volume here and also some more volume here. Okay, so this is the inside part, for example, for this, and then inside in this element here, once again we see some volume to go to this side and also some to this side. Okay, and in this case here we see here that there's a hole here, and again I will call your attention for the volume itself. So the volume of this element should be something like this. Okay, and we can create the inside part thinking about this volume. So we will see here some more flame, and here inside we see that the volume is coming to this part here, if you think about it in a 3D dimension. So we can also break here the flame itself. Okay, so the flame, the other color, this element that I'm creating now, and it's coming here. Okay, and it's like breaking, and it's coming here because that part is also coming here and here, something like this. Now let me just delete these lines. Okay, so we have a candle burning peacefully in a room. We have a candle that is being blown, and we have a fire that is coming bigger and bigger and bigger. But if you want to make a fire that is just there, like a torch, for example, you can bring all these concepts that we talked a bit here and just make it burning. And how do you do that? Basically as the candle that we talked before, but with this flame breaking and the way that we create these little elements that are separated from the fire, and we just keep it ondulating from side to side as you want. So if it's a fire that is always there like a torch, it will just repeat itself one time after the other. Okay, so we can make an example here. So this is my initial fire. Okay, and the flow that I want here, I want two things, is the fire to do this and this, so it is going from one side to the other, and also coming up. Okay, if I want it to come up, I will, in the following frame, this element here, I will bring it up, and I will start to change its shape to this shape that we talked about before. Okay, so it's like coming out, and this flame here is coming up and stretch it a bit, and this starts to gain another format again with this format. Okay, you think about half circles. Okay, and coming out, and these little elements here, I have 3 of them. They will come up and get smaller, so they will disappear. Okay, next one, as I start to separate these elements here, the other 2 disappeared. This little dot here, almost a dot, is this one that is coming up and vanishing. And oh wait, this doesn't belong here. And as I separate this part here, I'm giving it a little bit more volume here. So talking again about the meshes, here the mesh is something like this, and here it's wider, okay? And I'm separating now this one. This part here that is staying in the principal flame gets wider, and next I will separate this one, and this is coming up. This is going to be separated as well. In this part here I will make something like this happen here, okay? So I will make like a little bubble here, and this element just goes away in that shape that we talked before, and this is also going away and coming up, okay? Remember what we wanted here is like the fire coming up, but of course that I will not put it going up infinitely, because else we will lose our torch. This is just like the candle. It will go up and down, up and down. That's what we are creating. And it will be like stretching and then squashing a bit. This is the two shapes that we are creating here. The only difference here to the flame of the candle is these little elements that are happening here on the sides, but the principle is the same. The flame goes up and down, and then it goes a bit wider, and it will be continuing there burning, okay? So in the next one, so my let me check, this was my initial pose here, so it's coming up. Now I'll bring it down again and squash it. So the main flame here that was there up here now is coming down again and getting a bit wider. And again, these elements are just going as the same way that we talked before. So this is just repeating. As I bring this flame back to be smaller, better saying to be lower and a bit wider, now it's time to change the direction. Remember that line that we keep talking about? So this flame here started with a main line like this. You can see it kind of, right? And then it comes here is straight, and then the next frames what I will do is make it like this, okay? So it's like going side to side. So here you see the shape coming to the right side, and once again what I'm doing is like these little elements that start to appear, make them more visible and give it body, give it relevance. And this, for example, is going up, but also I'm stretching it a bit. Other times I don't stretch it, I just keep it smaller and make it disappear in the following frame. So I give here some uncertainty, some randomness, but always thinking about what makes sense in the shape of each element. Okay. Next one, I will keep this main alignment, so it will keep going to the right, but I'm going to separate a bit this top part of the flame. Okay, I'm separating a bit the part of the flame and bringing it even more to the right. And now I start thinking about coming back to this pose. So in this pose here, I have this one main part here on the top, and I will make it happen with this part here, but first I need to release this part. So in the following frames, I'm going to stretch up this and make it release this part, okay? I'm bringing it up, I'm making it, starting to separate it here, and notice again the shape of it, and the same thing also always happening the same way, okay? I'm just bringing this part up, giving it more energy, coming up, and now as it comes up, this spherical shape, it starts to vanishes when it goes up, okay? And I'm diminishing its size, and by doing that I keep this central part always energized, and I'm just making it disappearing from the outside part, but always going up, so that's why I'm stretching it up. And again, as I separate that part, so I prepare my flame here to be separated, and it goes up, and as I separate it, I just give it a little volume here, and the rest of the volume, the mass of this element, will come back to this main flame. And as this main flame starts to be like this, I will bring it a bit lower to, once again, remember we are trying to come back to this element. So if it helps, you can just bring it Control Shift V, so it will stay in the same spot. And this way I can see this green element, so that's where we want to come. Like on this, from this element here, I keep coming a bit down. And what I'm doing here is, since I have two parts here, I make it more evident, okay? And when they collapse, and I will have a little element to be before this one, okay? Something like this, but in this part. I started to bring this element here, this part here, this shape here starts to evince something happening there. And I give it shape here, and here I make it more sharp, and then I bring it up, and they are just about, I need one more, okay, here, where they will actually collapse and release the element, so they can then make this shape. Okay, so I separated here, and because I will not keep it here, I will delete it. It's just to help me to create the loop. So if I want also to have this little part, if we need something there, let's start creating it. Okay, so here it's just there, and then it starts to have its shape here. Okay, so I'll just delete this and also this. Okay, so this is our torch animation. Okay, now we can also create the inside part, but that's it. I think that's enough for fire. I still want to cover an explosion, magic, and a flag. So the fire this is the bigger one. Okay, so this is the main exercise because it has several exercises. So I now ask you to make all of these steps. So I want you to make the flame of the candle, and then make it vanishes. You can make the fire going bigger. Okay, so growing fire, and then this one. Okay, so this one would be the final exercises. This is the order that I established. Okay, so good luck and good work.